So the mindfulness bell assists us in finding that still point. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. In my non-dual class on Wednesday, James Twyman says the affirmation for the week is I am here. The I am, which is what we are. I am that I am, the one life, is here in this present moment. It takes us out of the local self into this universal field of awareness that is who we are. The very presence that is everywhere revealing itself. The Bible says, die daily to be born again in this presence. And in that metaphor, what they are saying is die to the local self. It's like the raindrop falling into the ocean. It's no longer the raindrop that's separate from the ocean. It becomes the very ocean of love. The one life, God's life. And we come here to experience that. It is a practice like meditation. But all kinds of things are practices for people. Gardeners, when we tend the garden, that is a practice. Oh, it's definitely a very meaningful one for me. And we experience our inner beingness. Beloved Thomas brought in all these sunflowers from his garden that had fallen over. He says they were too pretty when they were erect, but when they fell over, he says, well, now I can pick them and bring them to the center. There's something so sweet when we have a relationship with the very space that surrounds us, not as other, but as self, because it is all the one life. And so we come here to have a direct experience of the I am. The calligraphy over my head is so sacred for me. It says, I have arrived, I am home. And when we ring that bell and we breathe in to the heart, metaphorically the heart knows oneness, whereas maybe our head wants to get caught up in duplicitous, mine, yours, this, that. But when we put the head into the heart, then we're operating from a field of oneness. I am you, you are me, we are one. We sing at the end of the service because there's only one here. And so we use this simple practice of our Sunday service to go home, to observe the truth with the big T. And the truth will set us free of our nonsense. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The truth is, it's not about you. It's never been about you, as my teacher Llewellyn would say. It's about this divine presence, which is what we all are. And so we play in that field of awareness. The Buddha said, awareness is the Lord of everything. And so when we get still, this awareness has an opportunity to emerge, and we can smile. Because awareness will say, it just is what it is. And if you resist it, you're going to suffer. But if you can accept it and notice how it's showing you how some things fall away so that other things can emerge, well, then you embrace the journey There's no destination to get to where you're done. There is one continual journey, and the journey is to nowhere, or as I like to say, the journey is to now here. And so when we arrive in the now here moment, we smile, because this is what it's all about. Take a deep integrating breath. Be here now. Give a sigh for the divine. And open your eyes. You can still feel the silence permeating, can't you? Your mind hasn't started yata to yata to yata yet, or maybe it has, but you're the awareness of that. And it's so nice to know that I am the awareness. Adam was so beloved at our revealing service. He and his wife and his little boy went to this big celebration yesterday. Is it a sesquicentennial or something like that? It's the 250th. There's a big word, but I can't say it. But whatever it is. And Adam was noticing in his little mind all these things were going off, but he was also the awareness of all of that. And those little moments in life when you're the awareness, oh, my mind's going crazy, that's a good moment because you have the awareness of that which is going on within you. And could we claim and bless those moments of awakening? It was the 4th of July, and I found myself watching public broadcasting where they did this whole take on the American Revolution in a very artistic sort of way, as PBS would do. And they started with July 4th, 1776, when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So they went on to expand that Declaration of Independence and say, well, maybe it's all men and women, or maybe it's not just, but really what they meant was all white men are created equal, because then they went on and the blacks weren't included, the indigenous weren't included. So we saw the flaws of our own Declaration of Independence, but this was done 250 years ago, and how we have evolved since then. So PBS, as they would do, they kind of excavated it. It's like this whole idea around, are we a republic in America? A republic is where you're not being dominated by an authoritarian country like England. And Benjamin Franklin said, yeah, we are a republic if we can keep the republic, because the British don't want us to be a republic. And so when Thomas Jefferson wrote that, the King of England said, no, all men aren't created equal. There are superior men and inferior men. So you saw how consciousness is an evolutionary process. And so I thought, how important is this to see our country with new eyes? We're just starting off on our second 250 years. And I made a theme for this month about, what is the theme for the month? You are the one that you have been looking for. And the one that you've been looking for is your true nature, your non-dual self, the I am, that we all share. Boy, isn't that a nice place to find yourself, Michael? The one that you've been looking for all along has been there all along, but it's not the little me person that had all the goals, Anastasia. That's the one that did all this and that's and this and that's and this. And I have so damn many degrees and they don't mean a thing. You know, I was just sharing with the revealing service 50 years ago, I was working on my master's in dance, which I thought I was going to become a professional dancer at that stage. And at 25, to think you're going to be a professional, that's ludicrous. I was no Baryshnikov. But because it was the bicentennial, they needed somebody to do Yankee Doodle Dandy at the bicentennial celebration at the San Jose State University. And I guess because I was 25, they chose me. I was the oldest one in the class. And I had to run down the aisle as Yankee Doodle Dandy in an auditorium, and all this chorus lines of girls on the stage. You've heard me tell this before. And when I got up there in my white tuxedo, I went to do this gesture with my hat, and it flew out into the audience, Ed. And I'm thinking, oh, the hat was a big part of the dance. What am I going to do? And I went through this little moment of forgetfulness, and they were all dancing behind me. And I thought, well, I'm Yankee Doodle. I can do whatever the hell I want to do. And so I started doing Yankee Doodle all over the stage. Well, the choreographer ended up loving it. He said, but that's not what we planned. I said, I know. Well, what if life happens not the way you plan it, but the way it's supposed to be? And maybe that was a segue for how we're supposed to live our lives. Things fall apart, and yet you pick up the pieces and you go on with the dance. And so at this stage, at 77 and a half, I love going back to basics, like seeing the Declaration of Independence being read on TV. So I went back to Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching. I have so many books of his, Sylvia. And this is called The Essential Ernest Holmes. And I said, let me go right back to the origins of this teaching. I've been doing this for 37 years and see where we started out. And this man was a revolutionary in his time, and big time. And he's talking about what God is. So let's go and see what God is. Oh, my beloved friend Chris Meadows, he lives right next door to me, and he's a huge 12-step guy. And he says, what are you talking about on Sunday? I said, well, I'm talking about God. And he said, oh, God. He said, boy, that's a tough one to take on. I said, why do you say that? He said, well, you know, in the 12-step program, you say we surrender to a God of our understanding. And I said, and so what kind of God do they have? And he took this thing out of his notebook and he started writing on it. And he said, well, I asked them, what is God to you? And he says, the first thing they say, God is hateful. Then they say God is a punishing God. Well, these are what they believe, Sylvia. They say God is an angry God, that God is pissed off at me. They say God plays favorites, and he favors some and he hates others. And I said, so this is what they're operating from. This is the God. And then on the other side, he says, what kind of God can you open to? And they said, well, maybe I can open to a God that is calm and nice, maybe a God that is peaceful and loving. Do you suppose that's possible? So he said, this is what I work with when they're starting out. And I said, isn't that interesting? So Ernest Holmes was dealing with a God, and you know, James Twyman wrote, God has no religion. But I grew up in a fundamentalist Lutheran family on my mother's side. Oh my God, they were very narrow thinking. My mother said if a baby wasn't baptized, it was going to burn in hell. So as a nurse in the hospital, if a baby was born and it was born blue or whatever, it wasn't alive, she would rush it and baptize it to save its soul. That was my mother's mission, to save souls. Anyway, I love my mom. You're with me today. Anyway, so here's Ernest Holmes at the very beginning of the Essential Ernest Holmes. And here's what he says about God. He says, there is a universal wholeness with a capital U and a capital W that is seeking expression throughout everything. He says, we can call it life with a capital L, or the religionists, they call it God. A universal wholeness. Ooh, somebody's smiling in the audience. She likes that. Okay, he said, the philosophers call it reality. But he said, life is an infinite energy coupled with limitless creative imaginations, and it is the invisible essence and substance of every visible form. That means that you're sitting here in form, but there's an invisible you that is your spiritual being. Wow. And that invisible something is deathless and eternal. I'm just giving you a hint where we're going to go with this. So he says, our highest satisfaction comes from a sense of conscious union with this invisible life. Isn't that nice to hear? Way back, how many years this would have been ago, 1920 something, Sylvia, that our highest sense is that we are one with this invisible life. And he says, all human endeavors is an attempt to get back to this first principle and to find such an inward sense of wholeness. We're trying to go home, Barbara, to that inner sense of wholeness. That isn't a man in the sky that's going to punish you and throw you in a place of, no. All sense of fear, doubt, and uncertainty must vanish. Fear, doubt, and uncertainty must vanish. Ooh, Ernest. This is the very beginning. And he says, could we but comprehend the fact that there is a power with a capital P that makes things directly out of itself? Ooh, kind of shift and feel that in your body. You are made out of this divine love, this divine creativity. Ed, it lives in you. Do you know that? And your mother was filled with it too. Okay, by simply becoming the thing that it makes. So we say this, my teacher, Llewellyn, my Sufi teacher, he said, it's not about you. It's never been about you. It's about the beloved. It's about this divine presence. And so could you let this divine presence have its way with you? And then it changes the whole way you look at everything, doesn't it, Anastasia? You're the instrument of the divine. Hi, beautiful in the back. She's waving at me. Okay, so simply becoming the thing that it makes, could we but grasp this greatest truth about our lives and realize that we are dealing with a principle, scientifically correct and eternally present. Wow, eternally. We could accomplish whatever it is possible for us to accomplish. Life externalizes at the level of our thoughts. And then he builds this whole big book about how we can do that. And I'm not going to dive into that, but I will next week explore the idea. We have this opening thing we do the first of the year, but I decided since it's our bicentennial, the first of the year, the thing itself, which is this idea of God, the way it works through its creation, which is you and me. What it does, it creates newness out of itself, and then how we can apply it in our lives. So we're going to play with this divine connection throughout this month of July in a new kind of creative sort of way. And I was inspired by that, by my dear friend John Waterhouse, who was the one writing the spiritual mind treatments for our Science of Mind magazine. And he's filled with that same idea. And I've been reading him daily, and it's been like a ton to my soul, Sylvia. And I even went on to read Tomorrow's. And Tomorrow's was the most shocking because he talks about God as this eternal presence that doesn't die. And then his whole thing is that there is no death, that we are spiritual beings and spirit was never born and spirit never dies. And as I'm reading that, my little phone, which I had turned on, all of a sudden it pops up with Humphrey on it and he's barking at me. And I'm thinking, okay, God, don't make me laugh. Literally, he's going, woof, 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 woof. It's like saying, I didn't die a month ago. I'm still here with you. I know I sound crazy, but the universe has a way of saying we don't die. So let me give you a little John Waterhouse, my dear friend. And this is Science of Mind is such a wonderful, and it says here that he and his wife, Barbara, were the founding members of the church in Asheville, North Carolina. They weren't. I candidated there in 1989, and they didn't want me because I was a gay man. And the church had been there for 20 years. But he and Barbara did make it into a beautiful, beautiful center. So here's what he says on July 2nd. He's quoting Ernest Holmes. We believe in God, the living spirit almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. Indestructible, self-existent, and absolute cause. So this is what we believe in. And that's how he starts that. And then he says, taken together, this quote expresses a worldview in which God is the unequivocal source of life itself. So we're getting to this idea that it's not a man in the sky who has a naughty and nice list and condemns some people and praises others. No. It's this universal principle that is there. The unequivocal source of life itself, and it's ever present, it's self-sustaining, and it expresses through all of creation, including the human consciousness. So Ed said, all of creation. It doesn't just hang out in the humans. It's in nature. It's in the animal world. Sylvia was talking about her little cat. I swear to God, our animals are little souls that come into our lives. And someone gave me this book called Soul Contracts. It said every animal that we have has a soul contract with their human. And without exception, they're here teaching us unconditional love. And so when I'm blessed to have a little cat or a dog, I've had so many that have really transformed my lives. And I even have relationships with bugs and all kinds of things. Well, anyway, so John is taking us to that first idea that it's a self-existent cause. He goes on to say the next day he quotes Plotinus. New thought is really ancient thought. Plotinus said this, from the one, all things proceed, and to the one, all things return. There is one life. We come from the one life, we return to the one life. Plotinus. And Holmes' take on that is this one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. So what we are, play with this on a right brain level. I love when Anastasia did this idea of the subjective mind being the elephant. And what was the objective mind? The ant. Okay, well, the conscious mind would be the ant. That's the conscious mind. But the subjective mind is this huge subconscious field of awareness that we get to refer to. And it understands these deeper truths. So could we invite that subjective awareness? And that's what he's talking about. So he uses this word. What we are is panentheistic. A pantheism sees God on the outside. A panentheism sees God out here and in here. So what if this divine presence is not only everywhere in the universe, but it's also flowing through us? And then we get that I am you, Thomas, and you are me, and we are one. There's only one here, and those flowers are part of that. Panentheism. So he said, this source is greater than any form that it takes. Oh, we're playing in that field of divine love. Imagine that there's a little river, and you're a drop in that river, and that river comes here to the Center for Spiritual Living, and it wants to find that ocean of love. And then you get to the ocean of love, and you realize, holy cow, I'm not a drop in the river of life seeking the ocean. I'm the ocean itself, finding itself yet again. What if we could know the truth about who we are? So he's going to that bigger place. In essence, what divine, he says, this source is greater than any form that it takes. Holmes is saying that this one life, with all capital letters, is fully present in everything that we experience and express, yet it remains infinite, absolute, and greater than the sum of its creation. So he's throwing us into a big experience, Thomas, of this one life, which is what we all are. Is that too big for you, Adam? No. It means that you don't really exist, that we all exist as the one life, coming together in harmony, and that I am you. And thank you for coming back, because there is this certain kind of connection that you make when you realize that you're all in this dance of dissolving into the oneness. This is why we do not seek out God in any physical form. We understand that this divine presence transcends all limitations of the physical world. It's everywhere and it's nowhere at the same time. And so then when you go out for a walk, you just lift your head up like Derek is doing, and you say, okay, God, show me. You know, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm wide awake sometimes, and I'm kind of in a meditative state. So I find myself walking over to the window upstairs, and I've been looking out to the south, and this beautiful moon is going through the sky. And I sit there and stare at the moon for 20 minutes and know that the moon and I are one. It's like we're having this relationship. I know it sounds crazy. And then I try to go back to sleep. The next day, on July 4th, which was yesterday, he quotes Spinoza. And it says, whatever is within God, and nothing can be or can be conceived without God. So, Barbara, it's all God, everything. That's Spinoza. And then Holmes's take on that would be this: the manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. So this divine presence is revealing itself everywhere in the universe. Could we see it? And then we have a little phrase we do, namaste. The God in me bows to the God in you. The God in me bows to the God in you. Namaste, namaste. So Ernest Holmes builds on this. He says, every form is the physical expression of divine presence. I like using divine presence better, Bob, don't you, than God? The divine presence. Everything is the divine presence. So he builds on that idea. He says the structure of the universe then provides a mechanism through which this divine presence can express. Oh, don't you love playing with that? Tell that to the people at Whitesburg Baptist, that it's all the divine presence expressing in multiplicity. And James Twyman has this wonderful song, God Has No Religion. It doesn't need a religion because it's expressing with equanimity in all creation. Wow, we need a little ho'opono there, Mr. Richard. Divine presence expresses and experiences and knows itself. So this creation is not random or accidental. It is the result of the intelligent design beyond any understanding. We don't have to understand it, Sylvia. John Waterhouse is really exceeding the John that I remember. We don't have to understand it. And he goes on to build this infinite self-knowingness of God is the most important aspect of this principle. It is through the experiential and the relationship aspect of its creation that God is infinitely self-aware. We're interrelating to one another. You know, when Ed and I have our exchange, there's the divine meeting itself. I can't wait to meet your mother. I'll have to meet her on the other dimension, I guess. When I know you and you know me, and when I am relating to you and you are relating to me, what is happening is that God is knowing and relating to itself. Oh boy, does that take relationship to a whole nother level. We're having a divine relationship. And you know, it's easy to have them with the four-leggeds because they don't really think thoughts. They can just meet you in that tantric field of oneness. Yeah, I love to think about my animals. When I came home with baby Speck, she was a puppy. And we had this old cat named Smudge. And she ruled the roost. She was the queen of the household, and she did not want a baby puppy at the house. So she walked away, and Smudge, the Speckles, the baby dog, would crawl across. She looked like Pepper. She crawled across the floor to see the cat, and the cat would smack it and smack it and smack it. Well, she kept crawling over, and finally, Smudge, she put one claw in one cheek, put the other claw in the other cheek, and she would bite baby Speck's ears. Well, that's the way they communicated. That cat fell in love with that puppy. And when that puppy died, Smudge the cat never left her bed. And she ended up dying in Speckle's bed because she loved that dog so much. Now, they found the way to connect by all, it didn't look like it was a healthy thing, but they had this soul connection that was so beautiful. And so I read tomorrow's, which I want to share with you because it's so beautiful. It's Monday. And it says, "We are forever and forever expanding," says Ernest Holmes. "We believe in the eternality and the immortality and the continuity of an individual soul. It is forever and ever expanding." Paul is still here, Barbara. Forever and ever expanding. We don't die. Joe is still here. And he goes on, Ernest Holmes, to say this: by claiming the immortality, he invites us to connect to that which does not cease to exist. Yes, our bodies will change and eventually complete their journey here, but that which we are continues. Death is only a point of transition along our ongoing journey of consciousness. And then you can play with the idea of maybe past lives and future lives. Have we been here before? I wonder. It feels like it. So here's his little affirmation. This principle ends with, "We are forever and ever expanding," meaning that life is not static, but rather it's forever moving toward a higher consciousness and expression. And here's this little affirmation that we can say: I am an eternal being of love and light, now and always. I am an eternal being of love and light, now and always. So it's a nice thing to play with as we think about leaving here today and stepping out into a new way to express life. Yeah, I am an eternal being with love and light. And I want to close with Jeff Foster, who is this man that I met after I had the heart attack. And he literally changed my life, because when you're at that threshold of life and death and you meet someone who's speaking the truth, he talked about embracing the life that you still have. Yes, you had a wake-up call. You talk about the elephant and the fly. I mean, when they tell you you've had the Widowmaker and only 2% survive, and yet you're one of those that survives, you say, okay, what am I going to do with this life? It's really precious. Adam had a similar thing where he thought this could be the end. And Jeff gave me kind of an answer. This is the life that we have. It's not about achieving a lot of things. No. It's about being your authentic expression of God. At the end of his book, Jeff says this: our desires will wax and wane. Our dreams are born and then they die in every moment. So let's not commit to a form of our life. The forms are always shifting like the tides. Let's instead make a deeper commitment, one that cannot be broken or lost. Let's make a commitment to love itself, to presence, to meeting in the here and now, because that's all we really have. To bring and show all of ourselves to the world, hide nothing. To tell the truth today, knowing that our truth may change tomorrow. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But most people don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear what they want to hear. So commit to listening to each other and to bowing before each other's experiences, even if our hearts are broken and tender, even if we are triggered and the deepest pain in each other, with the most profound disappointments, the strongest urges and longings are all here for us. Boy, doesn't that put a whole new spin on the elephant and the fly? When the boat gets stuck in the water and it's dragging down by a tree, you say, okay, this too is for me. So he says, let us commit to meeting all of our pain. Holy cow. Is Jeff Foster crazy? And he says, love is a field. It's not a form. The field of love. Let us commit to this field of love. I'm hoping that we create a field of love here. Remember, the field is in every moment of our precious days here on earth. So devote ourselves to that field, because it lives in the eternal now. It's not when you achieve and get what you want. No, it's right now in the midst of whatever seems to be arising in your experience. And then he says this: if we are honest, we really do not know. And not knowing then becomes our home with a big H. Don't you love that, Thomas? Let's be honest. We don't know. How could we know? Because it's the great mystery of belonging to the universe. But it's called home, he said. And when our eyes are open, when we are awake, we live very close to life, very close to death, very close to insecurity, very close to loss. But this is where we find such a great aliveness. Wow. On the edge of all things. And people don't want to be on the edge, do they, Sylvia? They want to find comfort and certainty. But when you're on the edge, that's where we are alive and where everything is always new, where we are constantly surprised by ourselves and by each other. And then there is a tremendous sense of being alive. So we're going to go to the edge of life by having a little flute music. And then we'll do a little meditation. And we have a wonderful breaking bread lunch today. Did Barbara bring her wonderful cake? Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, that cake is to die for good. Bob and Kelly have a beautiful flute thing to take us into that space of belonging. That's beautiful. Bob, since you're here, why don't you play a little thing? And Paula, you want to help Richard, and we'll see if anybody has any donation to give to the center, and then we'll do a little closing meditation. We give to the source of our good. I write my tithe check every Sunday to put it in the basket. It's to support our center. We give to the source of our supply, knowing that you can't outgive God, and it returns to us multiplied abundantly. Okay, thank you. And Richard, yes, it's good. Yes, the beautiful music takes us into the ringing of the bell, which takes us into that intention to allow our awareness to fall into our heart space, to experience that eternal presence that is waiting for us. It's always waiting. It's right there. It is that field of awareness, that field of love and light. And we rest as that. When we meditate, so much of what we do is to go to that place of silence, that awareness of truth, and to rest as that. Thich Nhat Hanh calls this a state of inner beingness. And he says we inner are. We all share that inner beingness. Like just those moments where we come together, and that beautiful music took us into that place where we're not separate. There's only one here. And that's, so expansive, so ever-present. And then we can look out through our eyes, and where'er we go, we see the face of God. In oneself lies the whole world. And if you know how to look and to learn, well, then the door is there and the key is in your hand. But no one gives you that key or the door to open except yourself. So your intention to show up here and to go within and to reconnect to the truth of who you are is huge. And so when we come home, even if for it's this brief time here, feel the inner beingness that we have with one another, that we have with our planet. Maybe you have a four-legged that you experience that sweet inner being with is. I truly feel that they're sacred members that have come here to show us that sense of belonging. And so we rest into that space and we feel embraced by this love. Take a deep integrating breath and give a sigh for the divine. And now open your eyes. And we're going to make a circle and sing a song.